Adaptation is one of the new mods introduced in Arbitrations, the elite alerts you unlock after clearing every node in the star chart, and it's pretty good in some situations. I already talked all about how and when it can be strongest in my previous video, which is linked below. Now I'm going to change perspectives and consider how and when Adaptation is weakest. Behold, the holes in Adaptation's armor. Count them two, well, two major ones anyway, that can get you killed if you aren't prepared to counter them. I'm not going to go on about how the damage reduction needs to stack up, but you do need to keep that in mind. I talked about that a lot in my other video, but this mod requires you to take the full damage you want to negate, so you need to keep that in mind. You gotta take 100% of that damage, then 90%, then 80%, then 70%, etc. So you can't expect to just put this on any frame with any stats and succeed, but that doesn't mean that it won't help. You can see here if I didn't puddle there, I am gonna die pretty soon, but it's not like it's not helping. So right, the first of Adaptation's weaknesses is the other side of that need to take damage quite a few times before you get your full damage reduction. Yes, you need to survive taking damage from a given type several times, but you also need to take that type of damage several times in the first place. Some types of damage are simply not very common, and among them are some heavy hitting attacks that can down you in one shot. For example, blast damage from enemies is pretty rare, mostly from bombards and the odd grenade thrown by a fodder enemy, but when you get blast damage from, say, a bombard rocket, that's a lot of damage in one shot. And you can see just from standing around this group of enemies, I've got full resistance to puncture, I got plenty of resistance to impact, but I haven't gotten hit by a bombard rocket yet. I've just been running around randomly while I'm reading my script, and there I just took my first bit of blast damage. So if that was a lot and I wasn't playing in Aros, I might have died from that, even though I've got lots of 90% damage resistance to other types of damage. It's just not to that big type of damage. And again, yes, bombard rockets are avoidable, it's just an example. The point is that some rarer damage types will remain a threat. The second of Adaptation's weaknesses is that it can end up giving you less than 90% damage reduction, even if you're taking constant damage from whatever source. That's possible because Adaptation only gives you a stack of damage reduction against the predominant damage type of whatever you're hit by. Let's say something does 50 corrosive damage and 51 slash damage. You'll gain a stack of slash damage reduction every time you take damage from that source, but you won't gain any corrosive reduction. In this manner, you'll only ever have a maximum of about 45% reduction against that source total, unless you also get hit by something else that gives you corrosive reduction at the same time. The slash damage will end up being reduced by 90% to about 5 total slash damage, but you'll still take the full 50 corrosive damage. But how much this matters will vary depending on the specific enemy that's shooting you. I don't know exactly what type of damage different types of enemies deal, and if anyone has a way to know for sure, please tell us in the comments. For now, the assumption is that our enemies' weapons have the same base stats as our versions, and that they don't use mods. So when you fight a Lancer, like this one right here, they're using a Grakata that's the same Grakata that we would use if we just bought a Grakata from the market, and since a Grakata has nearly equal parts impact, puncture, and slash, you won't end up with nearly 90% total damage reduction against a Lancer. You have at highest maybe like 30% or so. But again, that's the assumption. The assumption is that they have the same weapons that we use, that their weapons have the same base stats that we use, and that they're not modded. And then for, say, a Bombard, they're using an Ogress, which is full blast damage innately. So that would be getting the full 90% damage reduction if you get hit by it enough times. If it weren't for that point I made earlier about not getting hit often enough, you could, theoretically, if it's not modded and it's the same Ogress we have, get 90% damage reduction against this weapon. But there's a lot of weirdness going on here. Like, watch this Elite Lancer shoot me with a Hind, a weapon that deals a majority of its damage as slash damage. I'm getting impact adaptation stacks, which doesn't line up. And then there's this random corrosive. Why did I just get corrosive adaptation? Where's that coming from exactly? It doesn't trigger every hit alongside the impact, but it's pretty consistent somehow. And then you've got blast from that grenade. That's normal, but what's up with the intermittent, sometimes corrosive, but not too frequently? And now it's falling off. Now I'm not getting hit by corrosive stacks. Where did that corrosive come from? Oh, no, I just got hit by it again 2 times in a row, 3 times in a row. What in the world? Why is it turning on and off corrosive damage? And you can occasionally see non-impact procs, But remember that this doesn't always mean a weapon deals that type of damage. It's still pretty weird though. And the inconsistency isn't limited to elite lancers either. This Drakkar lancer from before, Isa was shooting a Gurkhata, which does have pretty even IPS, but it's mostly impact, and yet I'm getting slash adaptation. All of these details certainly make you wonder though, and intuitively, just as we stand in front of this lancer, I don't really see that making me take less damage against the Lancer by that much. Like, I'm not taking very much damage at all anyway, but it doesn't really feel like I was taking way more, 10 times as much damage before. It kind of feels like it's about the same, which would suggest it is even IPS, and I'm only getting like 30% damage reduction. I don't know. Now, if we fight the Corrupted Lancers from earlier in this video, you're going to see that they have a Dara, which is a weapon that's mostly puncture, a good majority puncture, about 75%. So when they shoot us, we should get puncture adaptation stacks, and it should feel like we're reducing, 80, 75, 90%. We should lose health really quickly and then way less quickly. And you can see that we do. In the first few bursts, we lost 200 or so health, and now we're only losing like 5 or 10 per shot. So that does line up. It does seem like this one is working and reducing about 90% or something like that of the total damage we're taking. So to reiterate, I really don't know, and without extensive testing, this is just something to keep in mind, but it is a potential weakness of the way adaptation is implemented. Maybe enemies have different versions of the weapons we think they have, versions that have adjusted damage stats, and we actually don't have to worry about this much. In any case, it's important to remember that this mod does not literally give you 90% damage reduction. The way you get the damage reduction is very specific and significantly alters its effect. It's really not that it is simply good, it's just good no matter, it's good in general. What does that even mean? And it's not just bad, it has its weaknesses, but it's not just a bad mod. The truth is, it's complicated, just like most of the things in this wonderful game we call Warframe.